I think this kind of leads us into this topic of the evolution of Magic, right? So I started playing Magic in 1995, 96.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And, you know, it was just there. All of a sudden there's this Magic thing, right? Again, the joke I make is, when I was playing, there was mana burn.
Yep.
And there was no commander, right? Like, it didn't exist. This format was not a thing.
Not officially.
Right.
It was, you know.
Well, I don't even think it was invented back that early.
Oh, I'd have to go check the article again. I read the article yesterday. Polygon did like a definitive history of Commander at one point.
And I want to, and I do want to talk about that. But Magic kind of exists in these little pods.
Oh, there's several back in the days coming up.
It exists in these little pods, right?
Yeah.
And it was, you basically just played with your friends. Like, I hate to say it, but like, sleeving wasn't even a thing back then. Like, you didn't sleeve your cards. Exactly, that was how you shuffled.
There's pictures of like the early World Championships of Magic with people playing with unsleeved cards next to like a giant big gulp with no lid on it. And like, I talk with some people that are just like, I'm like panicking looking at this situation here, because it's just like a card table with like 30 people crowded around it, and you know, these cards are worth Lord knows how much now.
And by the way, everybody who played back then had an original Black Lotus. Everybody.
Oh yeah.
Everybody claims to have had one. It was funny. And then I got out of Magic for a long time. And when I came back after opening the shop, Magic is a very different game.
I believe it.
Now, initially, when I started getting back in, I was doing standard decks. Because I was like, okay, 60 card, this is what I was used to, right? And as I learned, standard, modern, Pioneer, those are not the dominant formats anymore. The original...
Socially, no.
The original game, 60 card Magic, that's not the dominant way it's played anymore.
In terms of numbers, you're absolutely right.
And you can see it in the product offerings, right? How many times a year does Magic put out a standard size deck, a 60 card with a 15 card sideboard?
Those challenger decks that they
or
do
something
sometimes.
like that, or the standard decks for Lord of the Rings, right? Versus how often do we see Commander decks now?
Yeah.
Right? And what's funny to me is Commander wasn't even invented by them.
Nope.
Now, you know the story behind that.
A little bit, yeah, which, Dog Dad, your comment is actually prescient, because I grew up in Alaska playing Magic, so sometimes I did have to travel up a hill multiple ways, you know, in the snow there, in that regard. So, for those who don't know, I won't do the whole history, because it's, you know, not necessarily my story to tell. Polygon has a fantastic article on this if you want to check it out. So, Commander was invented in Fairbanks, Alaska, and was play-tested, workshopped, messed with, pioneered, as it were, actually at an Air Force base where I spent not a small amount of time. Elmendorf Air Force Base.
Oh, I know where Elmendorf is.
Okay, yeah. So Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, Alaska. My dad, you'll know this, USAA. So my dad worked for USAA for 40 years. They insure the military, if you've never heard of them. So my dad's Take Your Son to Work days were, I got to go to military bases and people showed me fighter jets while he went and looked at somebody's Ford Explorer. And so this is where Commander emerged, because give people 8 months of mostly darkness and not a lot to do, and they're gonna invent some weird Magic format. And what's interesting is, in the interview, they talked to the guy who, back when it was actually Elder Dragon Highlander, exactly, Kelsey, which, for those who don't know, EDH, Elder Dragon Highlander, the original rules were you were only allowed to use as your commander one of the original Elder Dragons. Like, Nicol Bolas was one of these, that were 3-color. They were the only commanders you were allowed to have. And then gradually it grew and expanded, and it still exists. One of my favorite things about Commander, favorite weird little things about Commander, is to this day, the official Commander website is a .net address, which, if that's not Commander, I don't know what is. Like, you can publish all the nice, shiny, pre-constructed stuff and all the fancy packaging with all the $90 reprints, but mtgcommander.net is still the official website of this format. And that, to me, is just something beautiful about, there is this tiny little janky core to this thing that so many people love doing now. It's still a .net address sitting out there online. I just love it.
That Polygon article you referenced, I'm just looking through it real quick. They traced the origin of Commander to between 96 and 2000.
I could see that, yeah.
Right? And again, there's some, like, even there are, they're like, there's some
there's some contested nature of these things.
of exactly when it came about. Now they do. It's there up in Alaska where they're like, yep, this is what we did. And it was because they got bored of the 60 card, because everybody's playing the same decks.
Yeah. Well, and this is what was so fascinating is the article brings up this issue of net decking. Because it was funny. So I started playing Magic in 2001. I don't know, do you want my...
Yeah, go.
Okay. I bought my first ever Magic cards at a pawn shop in Seward, Alaska on a Boy Scout camping trip.
Nice.
We were on this trip wandering through Seward. I think we had like $20 to our name, the three of us. And what we bought, I genuinely miss this product. This was a cool product. Have you ever seen the World Championship decks?
Yes.
They're so cool. For anybody in the chat who doesn't know these.
Yeah.
So back in the day, this was
a long time ago.
This was the aughts. This was the early aughts, 2001, 2002.
I remember seeing those.
And so what it was 75 cards. Unsleeved, so 60 cards plus a 15-card sideboard. And what it was the top 8 of the most recent World Championship of Magic.
I remember this.
All of their decks in, and here's the thing, a different back. Yes, gold borders, exactly, in the YouTube chat there. So it's gold border, which here's the fun thing, legal in Commander.
But not in
anything else. So there are people who will go and get these gold border, they're kind of a chase thing. You could recreate the World Championship of Magic in physical Magic. This is what we learned to play Magic with, and it was a dumpster fire. Things like Necropotence, which is one of the most powerful cards in the history of Magic. We look at it and we're like, you have to pay life to draw cards? Why would I do that? Pfft, this Llanowar Elves. Tap for a green mana? Get out my creature faster? Let's do this. So we're in this tent playing this. And this is where I got into Magic in that regard. And this was pre-net decking. I'm seeing some old, I remember Inquest, I remember Scry magazine, these sorts of things, the actual physical magazine. And net decking was beginning to become a thing, where you would show up to events and they found some list online and it was gonna be your random janky brew that you'd thrown together or whatever. And that was the idea of Commander, which this is something I like for all the changes Commander has gone through. I think at the heart of it, that brewing culture, and you can talk about EDH Rec and how that's changed things, but the essence of Commander is you dig through what you have in your closet and build a deck. Like, I do this with William, and a lot of people don't, and a lot of people choose to just hop online and download a deck list, and you can. But the singleton nature of the format, this is something I do really like.
Because there's the single card,
Exactly.
You're not building 4-card playset.
Exactly.
Right? You're not going, all right, I'm going to get my 4 Llanowar Elves, my 4 of this, my 4 of this, my 4 of this, where really, at the end of the day, you're basically playing 6 cards.
Yep. 6 to 12 cards.
6 to 12 cards.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's mana.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Kelsey, when I first heard about Black Lotus, I thought it was trash. I was like, why in the world would I want to play a card that gets me mana once and then I never use it again? This is, anyway, this was, there. If you haven't heard of them, there's the psycho profiles or whatever in Magic. It's you're like they've gender bent them and things over time, but there's like a Timmy or a Tammy or a Johnny or a Jenny or these different things. And Timmy is the one who likes big, giant creatures. And that was my thing growing up, was it's very much like my 6-year-old is today. I wonder where he gets it from.
I want the big dragons and the smashy face.
Yes.
And
Why would I want this thing that gets me mana one time when I could have this 8/8 that, is just big and gigantic? And so it was interesting to see Commander, when I learned about that, it being explicitly about, we don't like net decking. Mm-hmm. We want to encourage this more organic brewing, because even in the late 90s, early 2000s, you were starting to see that.
Yeah.
And the article calls out in an interesting way, that's just not a thing anymore. People don't get grumpy about net decking anymore because it's just Magic. And you can make a deliberate choice to choose not to engage with it. The Pioneer deck, when we get ready to talk about the RCQ a little bit here, this that I've got with me, this is my Pioneer deck that I keep sleeved up, that I played at the RCQ that I played in. It's mostly a net deck, but I made some changes, and that feels good. And that's just Magic today, I feel like, is you have all these websites, and you use them or don't, but a lot of people do.
You do, and I wonder, so this is one we've talked about on the show a lot, right? Is there is an impression that I get from customers who are not current Magic players, right? Where they look at Magic and the deck lists online, and all those deck lists now come with a cost.
Yep.
Right?
Buy now at insert website.
Right, and it's $330
Yep.
for this one deck. And I get a lot of people who are very intimidated by the state of Magic today.
Yeah.
Especially Commander, right? And the funny thing is to me, Standard, Modern, all these ones, Pioneer, those are the ones that would be great for getting people into Magic.
Yep.
But the problem is not enough people play them on a social level anymore.
It's in a non-competitive social level, I 100% agree.
And that's the problem is that I think these decks can be a little more approachable than a 100-card Commander deck.
Yes.
Right? Where it's 100 cards. And because it's a singleton format, because it's single card, and I know I'm sure you've had this experience too. I know I've had it a lot lately where depending on how I draw my deck that day, it may play well.
Yep.
It may just flop where I'm like, I got everything out of order of when I really needed it, and my mana ramp didn't come fast enough, and like I'm sitting here watching other people play Magic.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if with Commander being the dominant format, with the way Magic has evolved, how does Magic get newer players? Because I don't think their current strategy is working.
Hey nerds, thanks for watching. Visit gamersheavenpnw.com for our merch store, which you can get cool shirts like this and rep some of my awesome art. Also, like and subscribe for more content so we can make more videos for you.